We are live here with Chase King. Yes, I'm double checking. Yes, we are live. So, welcome everyone. We're glad you're watching. And my name is Christopher Braselton. I'm on staff with Elm Street Cultural Arts Village. And while we are, certainly in quarantine, we're reaching out to as many artists and as many of our directors and people that we work with to do some interviews and have some fun. So today we are here with Chase King, one of our artists. Chase, hello. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well.
Good. Thanks for joining us. I have to say, the quarantine life, I was gonna trim up myself, but then I actually got inspired and decided to hold out in honor of you and your beard is looking great. Hope maybe one day,
Thank you.
maybe at the end of COVID-19, I'll have a beard similar to yours. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think by the end of this, I'm gonna shave everything off.
Fair,
A clean start.
That's fair. Well, we've got a series of questions for you here, and certainly we would love to hear from you. So if you are watching on Facebook, we'll make this available on other platforms soon. But if you're watching on Facebook and you do have a question for Chase, leave it in the comments, and we'll check in with the comments here in a little bit. And Chase, we might ask you some of them in a little bit.
Cool.
So first, let's start with some easy stuff, Chase. Tell me, I guess you're obviously a visual artist and you do that professionally. Where did you first fall in love with painting, with visual arts?
It started for me in high school with Mr. Putnam's art class when I was a sophomore, and I just didn't know I had any kind of artistry in me or in my blood. There's no bloodline that carries any art that I know of. So it just kind of it stemmed from having some good direction from a teacher. I needed some direction at that age anyways, and I fell in love with it. I liked expressing myself in the ways that I was able to in that class, like I had never done before. So from there on out, the rest was history. I just ran with it. As soon as I fell in love with it, I ran with it.
Was it something did you fall in love with it? For instance, you said the expression for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, expressing yourself in a way like with paint or drawing mediums or things like that. Being at that age, 13, 14 years old, I just lost my mom. I didn't really have any kind of, basically just sort of confused and troubled, didn't really know what I was doing with my life at the time. I mean, you really don't at that age anyways, but it just helped to have someone with some balance and expression. And I'm talking about Bob at this point in his classroom and the kind of environment that it created for me. It was good.
Good.
It was really good.
Good. Did you have, it might have not happened that year, but, obviously discovering a love for it and then having a moment where maybe you decided that, yeah, this is a route I want to take professionally. Did you ever have that aha moment where you?
Yeah, I kind of did. I think I didn't realize it at the time, but 2008 in the high school class I'm talking about, he got me involved in the governor's honors program, or at least through the rounds of jury process and making a body of work and showing it to people of around other high schools. And basically that program sent you, it was a 6-week program, and I studied fine art for 6 weeks at Valdosta State University. And I studied under 3 professors at the time with 45 other students from across Georgia. That kind of locked me into the idea of possibly making it a career. It was, at that point, it was really just for fun and expression. But when I was exposed to the possibilities of what art could be for me as a career, I started to entertain that idea. Didn't really take it to heart until probably right after I graduated college, when I was like, I need to start thinking about something to do. And that was the first thing that came to mind. But yeah, that's the first time painting really became a serious avenue for a career for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then it also opened the door for art history. I studied a lot of art history while I was there too. I was spending a lot of time in the library looking up artists and that. So yeah, there was a lot of different things that opened the doors for me. Painting and art history was definitely one of them. Two of them.
Okay. I've heard, and I'm again a little naive to this, but I've heard that the art history side of the visual arts proves to be very valuable.
Absolutely.
Throughout a career on a number of fronts, whether you're an artist or maybe you have a gallery or any sort of visual art front, that art history tends to be more and more valuable as you grow.
Yeah. I mean, contemporary art especially has its role in art history, because without understanding art history, you don't understand, or it's hard to understand why artists are making and doing the things they're doing today. History informs the present. And, so understanding, or at least having a basic understanding of where art has come from and different cultures that it's weaved its way throughout the generations and centuries of culture, it really broadens your idea of what things can be, and it also helps you kind of make informed decisions today, if that makes any sense. It's kind of
definitely
navigating your way through history to understand the present.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll shift gears for a little bit and then we'll come back. But you've started teaching classes at Elm Street, but I think you teach at other places as well. So talk about what that's like as far as maybe passing some of those skills that you've learned on to maybe the next person, versus, working on your own craft, as you're right now.
So currently, I still teach at Elm Street, despite the quarantine. I'm not there personally right now, but so just Elm Street right now. But in the past 2 years, I had an opportunity to teach at the Marietta Artists and Resource Center. I did a 6-week workshop there. That's where teaching really began for me. Mm-hmm. From there, I haven't really been teaching other than at Elm Street. However, sharing my knowledge and my techniques with other people, it hasn't stopped from the classroom. I've been able to go online and share my process via Facebook and Instagram, and having people over at my studio, showing them in person what it's like to work in an artist studio.
Yeah.
And things like that. So it's been eye-opening for me, because for one, people care enough to pay attention and want to ask me questions about it. I mean, that's nice. It helps me, kind of validates my career a little bit, because I feel like at least someone cares.
Sure.
Not just myself. You've been stuck in a studio painting all the time. It's really nice to get out. So and share your craft and your process and techniques and your passion. That's really what I've gained from teaching, is just being able to share things with people, and also getting something back from people too. Not just the validation, but the charisma and enthusiasm that they have for art. It's great to watch all that happen and unfold for people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, definitely. Well, I'm interested because you're working on a piece there. So
yeah,
this is a 2-part question. So I guess if you talk a little bit about that piece, but also I guess more broadly, talk a little bit about your process when you're working on your pieces, because certainly through Zoom looks fascinating.
I'll go ahead and start with this painting. I mean, you kind of have a profile view of it, but this is Wow, I started this painting last year. Um, my painting goes through a number of different processes. I'll do a painting on it and I really like it. And time will start to wear on it and I don't like it so much. So I start to modify it and change it. And from there on out, I start to build up these amazing textures and qualities that I would never have been able to imagine beforehand. So I just sort of build on my mental process and what I'm kind of going through there. And I also let the tactile nature of paint sort of inform my physical process too. Um, but the ideas of what I'm actually painting, it's really a conversation between imagination and reality. And I try to convey that as simple as possible. I don't, it's kind of difficult at times to really describe it, but I do my best to just as simplify it as possible for me. And the best way to describe that is just a conversation of imagination and reality. Those two things um, meet here for me.
That makes actually a lot of sense. Being at some of your shows and looking at not just one piece, but an array of
Yeah.
work that
Sometimes,
you've done, that is a good description of the balance or the tension between imagination and reality of
oh, okay.
getting some things out of the pieces that are perhaps easily tangible or easily understandable, but then how that evolves into the rest of the piece is very, very
Yeah.
fluid. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I
Okay, good. Good.
appreciate you talking about, like, I
Yeah.
guess for me who has seen a number of your pieces, that is fascinating to hear you say that.
Yeah.
And it's also, I've not heard of, well, I shouldn't say I've not heard of, I've not, as someone who does not practice visual art as commonly, I have to say that it's fascinating to hear I've heard more commonly you hear of time being a factor in creating pieces because of practical application. So for instance, drying time of a layer
Yeah. Yeah.
before you add a new layer or something. But as
Yeah.
far as allowing time to help with the piece without a practical application, but purely for in the creation of the piece itself, that's that seems fascinating to me. So
Yeah. And I use oil paint and it has a long drying time. I'll give you an example. This is the kind of material I use. So I get big tubes of these and that's where I start. Sometimes the paint takes 3 to 5 days to dry. Sometimes it takes a couple weeks, just depending on what is in the pigment makeup.
yeah.
So, and there's a number of different ways to approach wet paint. You can work wet on wet, or you can literally let it dry and then paint on it again. So I kind of go in between both techniques, just to kind of allow to not allow stagnation, I guess, because when you're in a mindset and you need to get something out, sometimes it's best to just get it out regardless of what's happening, and then just kind of step back for a moment, look at it, and kind of assess how much time you need to move forward. That's it's a push and pull, but it's very fulfilling. I'll say that.
On that same vein, practicing with the different techniques, again, that's a practical thing. We got a comment in from Angela. She is wondering, in the comments here, she's saying, can you see different moods come out in your art? And since you were talking about the practical application of whether drying time or not, and letting it evolve as you're going, I guess
Yeah.
the appropriate question to ask now. So can you see different moods come out in your art as
Yeah.
you're working on it?
Mood is a very funny thing, especially when you're trying to harness it in an external form, be it paint or mark making or things like that. So yeah, there is a timeline of moods in these paintings that I'm working on. So I have to kind of step back and really be methodical and intentional about what it is I want to keep on the painting, especially when I'm working over things. And because it may not work for me as I might look at a painting and I love the mood and feeling of it, but it's just not working as a painting. That has to, I have to kind of grapple with that for a moment and say, do I need to do that at another time? So do I paint over it, or do I leave it and sit on it for a while? So those are the kind of, it's a really good question. I think it's just a matter of really looking deep down at yourself to a degree, but also looking at the painting and letting the two things sort of happen concurrently.
Yeah.
So there's a level of balance. If I'm feeling like a certain mood, like for instance, if I'm feeling cooped up like I am right now in the studio, I have to just kind of block that out while I'm painting, but also let it come through in a certain way, whether that's just like working in just one color for 3 hours. It's synonymous with feeling cooped up. You're seeing the same thing. You're seeing the same four walls or the same house for a month on end.
That was
maybe working with one or two colors is synonymous with that feeling. So whatever comes out of that process, I'm open to. And I might feel totally different about that approach 5 months from now when we're not quarantined anymore.
right.
But it's a record, and that record will be somewhere in the painting one way or another.
Right.
Whether it's through physical texture or visual appearance.
Right. That was going to be my next question. Was as a follow up. Was do you typically do your own moods, currently being cooped up or not? Do you embrace those to use those, or do you combat them depending on what you're trying to, or that may vary, obviously.
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think I always find when I do, we're human, right? We'll naturally try to block things out that we're feeling. But I do find, and I'll do it, I still do it, but I find that when I just let things come out, it works better, even if it's not, for the best interest of the painting, the way it looks and feels and all that. But as a human being, it's best to just express yourself as truly and as honest as you possibly can. And if you fight it, it'll show. And you're just wasting time. You're gonna have to go back and be honest with it again. So sometimes it's just best to let things out the way they are. However, like I was saying, we're human. I tend to do this. I'll just say I'm painting something and it's coming out to a form that I just don't want, but it's coming out naturally. So I have to say, am I just going to let that happen, or am I going to just change it? And it happens often, but that's part of the process. When you're, as an artist, you're painting. It's a visual reflection of who you are internally, and that's a lot to grapple with sometimes.
Yeah.
So I try to be as genuine as I can with it as I go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask. Is there a favorite part to your process?
Yeah, I think there is. It's twofold. It's when I get to a point. My mentor told me this once, and I totally agreed with him, and I think it has become one of my favorite parts of the process. When I'm working on a painting and I don't know what came first, what layer came first, it's so complicated and has so much paint on it that when I'm making marks and I'm looking at it, I don't know what mark came first and what came last. It's the complexity of the painting that I am most fond of and appreciate the most. I'm speaking as an artist and as a painter that may not come across as, I don't know how it comes across to people, but that's where I'm at with my favorite part of process. Is just, it's the complexity of layers and textures and what came first, and it's about the decision making in that and where I go from there that I really enjoy. It's kind of like problem solving. for
That
painting.
no, that actually makes a lot of sense. I feel like that would make almost like not necessarily trying to overanalyze what you're doing, but just being immersed in it. And
Sure, yeah.
I
It's kind of hard
get
to
that.
dissect something when it's so complicated. So it's almost best to just get into it and be
Yeah,
a part of it. Yeah.
very very cool. So I want to jump back into some practicals for you. So you work on, at least my understanding is you've got some commissions. You work on pieces for your collection to work towards an exhibit or gallery in general, juried shows, and teach. For those of you at home that don't know, a juried show, I'm gonna botch this, so Chase, feel free to jump in here. But typically, there's some there's some element of either judge or competition with those juried shows, whether it be to go into you're adjudicated to go into the an exhibit, or a lot of juried shows are in the exhibit, and then there's judges that go around the exhibit to award prizes at that point. So I know that you have taken part in several of those, Chase.
Yeah.
And so I guess going back to, I know you have done commissions for people. Or working towards gallery or exhibits of your own, or as part of a larger exhibit, juried shows and teach. Is there anything else that you're doing right now to work on your career as an artist?
Yeah. Well, this very thing we're doing, the virtual outreach and trying to communicate with people on this scale, is definitely helping my career. I think I'm getting in front of more of an audience than I ever could by doing something like this. So this is definitely a good one, a good example. But teaching is another good one for me. That has actually helped my career tremendously as far as conveying my ideas to other people and it being reciprocated. That is that's a kind of a milestone for me, because I need to understand how it is that I operate, and it be clear to other people. It helps me understand that, and being with other people and talking with other artists in general has done wonders for my career as far as that goes. Of course, the juried shows, gallery exhibitions, those sort of things have been put on hold right now, at least physically. There's some virtual shows and online exhibitions that are going on right now, or at least starting to pop up, I've noticed. So I've currently got a couple of submissions out there that I'm waiting for, kind of pending, I guess is what you would say, pending submission. So I'll have to wait back and see if I've been admitted or anything like that. But yeah, I've got a lot of different things going on right now. A lot of studio practice, a lot of sharing my work live. I started doing that during quarantine, which I've never done before. I never would have thought I would do that, but I'm open to the idea now, and I think it's doing good things. So yeah.
Great. Do you have I mean, I know obviously right now we're all experimenting with all sorts of different things to continue to work. Are you having, I guess, what's been the, traditionally, I guess a two-part question again, traditionally, what do you have one that you enjoy most as far as working toward an exhibit, or trying to make an exhibit yourself?
Yeah.
And I'll tag on to that, as we're navigating what this current season is. Have you discovered something that might have been an unexpected, either joy or anguish of the current season, that you weren't necessarily expecting, but as you're dealing with it, you're learning from?
Yeah. So I'm trying to look forward to the first part of the question was regarding the exhibitions that I'm looking forward to doing. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I guess I was just, it wasn't even exhibitions per se as much
Or
as,
just,
commissions or teaching. I know there's a little bit of joy in everything. Is there something
yeah,
you find yourself always looking forward to, traditionally speaking? And then the second part was unconventionally speaking in this current
right.
season. Have you discovered something?
Well, I was thoroughly enjoying the teaching, and I think I got a couple of commissions uh, recently that I enjoy doing. I think it's really a collaboration between the minds. Someone's reaching out to me to create a visual expression that they are either don't want to do or want me to do it for them. And I think that's interesting to kind of talk about what they want and how I kind of perceive it, and then we'll go from there. That's kind of an interesting thing for me, that I would like to do more of. And I've done more. I've done commissions in the past. It's just I don't take them as frequently because my studio practice has been paramount up until, you know, as soon as I graduated college, my studio practice is what I was really focusing on. Getting into shows, putting on exhibitions for myself and others, and just kind of getting into the art community as much as I possibly could. And studio practice was the best way for me to do that. Making my own artwork, showing it to other people, selling it to other people, and displaying those techniques and things through a class was kind of almost the newest way for me to do that. And I think that I get a lot of joy out of all those things that I mentioned the most. I think I get the most joy um, out of having a solo or group exhibition with other people, because it's showing, or it's showcasing rather, um, artists' finished work, and it's all kind of put on these white walls, and it's all set up for people to come and view and be enthralled by or challenged by. All those things, you really get to see that in a crowd and an audience, and to get to kind of experience your artwork, which really puts your artwork into perspective. Because when you make it, it's in a studio, no one's really watching you. So when you put it out in front of other people, you really get a firsthand look and feeling that you don't really get to experience ever until you do that for the first time. So that to me is what I have the most joy from that. Um, but it's difficult now in these times because it's not so much of that going on personally, or like physically. I guess there's not a lot of that going on. So you reaching out virtually, not so much to get those feelings, to fulfill that from that something that's missing, but it's really just another way to explore the realm of connecting. And I try to do that the best way that I possibly can with artwork, and that's all that I really know. And I'm looking forward to evolving that idea of connecting with people through art. And I think this is an ultimate challenge for us, all of us, because we can't physically connect.
Right. Exactly.
Do
No.
what we can. We're doing what we can, and I think that's the silver lining for a lot of people. I think that it will be as we all start to see this, um, hopefully end soon, or at least we'll be able to start branching out and talking with one another again in person.
I can't, speaking from my own experiences, I couldn't agree more that there's some, for a traditional way, as far as maybe a show or something like that, where you've worked on all of these pieces and now you're exhibiting them on the white
Yeah,
wall. I'd imagine that it's a balance that's somewhat euphoric because of your vulnerability, almost, of whether that's, as you said, whether it's enthralling or challenging, allowing the public to look at that. And I think
yeah,
what's amazing now is to see a ton of artists in any medium, performance or visual or music, whatever, of trying to, again, yeah, I agree, a silver lining of almost finding new horizons, so that our connection, supersedes the distance that we have, you know,
Yeah,
and trying to find that. So good on you for having that outlook.
sure. Well, it's if artists and people in general allow something good to come from this, it will.
Sure.
Like, we come out of this a stronger culture and a stronger civilization if we just allow the challenges to make us resistible or more resistant to challenges. You know, does that kind of make sense?
That does. Yeah, no, I get
Yeah.
that. So I want to jump back on the comments here really quickly. So let's look here real
Sure.
quick. See who has said something. So Madeline says, "Show us your favorite painting right now."
I technically I can't do that because it's so big and it's all the way upstairs.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I will. I'll show you a painting that's not mine. That is my favorite.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
And I see a couple more people have asked questions. We'll get to those in 1 second. So,
Can
so
you guys see that?
Sort of, yes.
Hold on, I'm trying to get.
There we go.
It's a French doll that Melissa Basham created. This is the first piece of artwork I ever bought, and I hold it very dear to my heart. For some reason, it's just technically she's a very skilled artist, and complete opposite of me is technically. Like, I don't paint as realistic as this or draw as realistic as this, so I have a great appreciation for her approach, and yeah, I like it. This is one of my favorite pieces by another artist.
That's no, thank you for saying that. I know that's always vulnerable to also share what you enjoy as well.
Yeah. My taste in artwork is almost complete opposite of what I do.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I like to be as well-rounded as I can as far as
that, and it probably allows for inspiration on your own pieces as well.
Absolutely.
Because there's lines being crossed there.
Yeah.
Madeline also says process time lapse. Maybe that's it's definitely a product of COVID is something that maybe you're working on as far as sharing process time lapse, which is a great time to say if you have not or if you do not follow Chase King. I think it's Facebook. It's Chase King Art. Is that correct, Chase?
Yeah, and same with Instagram.
And same with Instagram. So definitely give them Chase a like and a follow. You can see some of that process, like time lapse, where you're seeing some of his work develop maybe a little bit more quickly than what is reality.
Yeah.
Angela has another question. She wanted to know what genre of art have you not tried that you see yourself attempting at one point? Right now, you do oil painting. A lot of your pieces are oil based.
Yeah.
So what do you see yourself doing in the future, at least trying?
Well, as soon as I'm able to, and things lift, the social distancing, physical distancing lifts, I'm going to take a ceramics class with Betsy. She's going to teach me how to throw or hand build bowls, and I'm going to do inscriptions on them and drawings. I've never done ceramics before to that extent, so I'm looking forward to doing that. That's what I want to do. And I had this planned. I talked to her probably a month before everything happened. So as soon as things clear up, I'm definitely gonna do that. Big bowls, like centerpiece bowls for tables with drawings and inscriptions inside of them. I'll make sure to post my process, or at least the finished work.
Yeah,
that'd be
on a large size.
Yeah.
All right, a couple more here, and then we'll have to go. But Chase,
Sure.
Let's see. Oh, Nancy says, "Oh, this is not really a question, but you should know, Chase." Nancy says, "Chase has changed how I approach painting, and he has helped me to connect this approach to how I view and examine life. He is extremely talented and reflective individual who has made this novice painter feel so welcome and valued. I will continue in his class." That's
Nancy and I share a similar emotional approach to life. I think we both kind of look at life in a reflective way. So I think her and I resonated in class. She's one of my students,
right.
and we've worked together, and she's shared with me some of her poetry and how she wanted to connect that with visual art, and I thought that was an excellent idea and approach. So yeah, that's good to hear. Thanks, Nancy.
And I think there's a few other comments here. Tagging Betsy, yes, and Julie says, Chase King, I love your art.
Oh, thanks, Julie.
Lots of people really love what you do, whether it's from the classes or the or your pieces and yourself. I know you've done a couple of shows around Woodstock, and I'm sure that we'll see some more soon. Chase, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is there anything else you have? This is total authority. You're live. So is there anything else you want to say to before we sign off?
I don't know. I think go outside and enjoy the fresh air. That's all I have to say. And I'll see you on the other side.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, Chase, thank you so much for giving of your time and sharing a little bit about what you do in your process and all that you've done up to this point. We look forward to seeing what else you do, both digitally in this season, but also afterwards as we get back out there. We're looking forward to seeing more shows and seeing what else you do. Thanks for, also again, please, if you haven't, please go to Chase King Art, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, and there's a website as well. Please,
Chase King Art, yeah, chasekingart.com.
Yes, chasekingart.com. So please give those a visit and see some more work that Chase is working on. There's a lot of really cool things that Chase is doing out there. So check it out, follow him. And otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Chase, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Thanks, Christopher. Have a good day.
Yep, you too.